It's a happy dappy Monday to you from me and all of us at On and Off the Topic, on and off the stage, on and off the topic. Today we are talking about curiosity. And if you've never joined us before, we miss you. We've missed you. If you've joined us many times, then we still miss you because, hey, it's always a week between the time we get to talk to each other. So we're going to talk about curiosity. The big year theme is community. The underlying theme for June is curiosity. And I am an improviser. It's lovely to be an improviser, but I am not a scientist. I am not a licensed board certified behavioral analyst, but I know someone who is.
Is it me? Hi, happy Monday. I have also missed all of our people who have not ever been here before. I missed you in my life before this moment, and now you're here, and our lives are complete.
Our lives are complete. Like, it's so good. We're gonna dive in, Emily, and we're gonna talk about me and my life right now.
I love it when we talk about you. So, and you know what? I'm actually, so we've said a million times, we live across the country from each other. So this is about all the time we get to catch up, which is very fun, related to this theme, because I'm literally always curious about what's going on in your life. So I'm curious, Shannon, what would you like to talk about? Talk about your day.
I'm going to talk about curiosity a little bit, okay? And how, we talk a lot about the things, whatever the theme is, and we have a tendency, in general, everybody has a tendency to talk about whatever it is in a positive light, right? Well, when we're curious, it inspires, blah, 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 and like this positivity. But I'm telling you, being curious is hard work because it's not just about like, I wonder if the stars glow in the whatever place on the planet. It's more than that. And so today, this is what happened today. First off, I've been trying to change my life around a little bit and have a different sort of lifestyle. That lifestyle includes being able to put my work on my back, go wherever, and work from wherever the wind takes me, okay? And today was basically the first day that I was able to sort of do that. I felt like I had all of the things that I needed. Well, bit by bit, as we got closer to this show, things started falling apart. And it was like, I was all the way across town and my bicycle wasn't ready when they said it was supposed to be ready. Okay, well, that's fine. Well, I was also far enough away that there wasn't any like food or cafes or anything around. That I was too far to go home. I was in a place that had no internet. It was just like dead zone for me. I was a sitting duck in the water. And I started to get really frustrated, Emily. I started to get really frustrated. I could feel it in my chest. I could feel it in my fingertips and my toes and my legs. I could literally feel myself and my stomach just like becoming annoyed and frustrated, specifically toward this person who wasn't done with my bike when they said they were going to be, and now I'm going to be late and it's all your fault. Mm-hmm. And then I started thinking, obviously, about what we're talking about, which is curiosity. And I thought to myself, well, I can't just sit here. I wonder what is around, what are my options for
Mhm.
getting done the thing that I have to get done, which is be with you, all of you here talking about curiosity. So I started looking up cafes, where could I go, and thinking about those things. Anyway, I ended up, that's where I am right now. I'm actually in a cafe, and it just so happens that this cafe has private rooms for $20. And so I rented a room really quick. I got on the internet. We'll see you in 30 minutes. Come on, internet, right? But I got here and I'm here talking to you now. And yeah, I want to talk more about this, like not the pain, but the challenge that actually is being curious. Like
Yeah.
what is going on when we decide, okay, well, what is curiosity, and not just like be curious, it's fun, right? Look into your favorite plants or whatever it is,
Uh-huh.
but what is the challenge behind curiosity, right? That's
Yeah.
what
Well, I think like what it kind of sounds like you're talking about is the not just the like private mental action of like thinking about being curious, but the active part of that, which is getting out of your comfort zone and exploring something new and trying something new. And there's, of course, a lot of risk to doing something totally novel, right?
Mhm.
There's a lot of unknowns. You could have very easily like been today, even though today was like your adventure on a bike day, or like try to be on a bike day. Like you could have very well been like, but I'm going to stick close to home because that's what I know, and I don't need to like explore further. Um, but because you were like, I want to investigate if I can actually do this, and I want to like
Mhm.
see my city and do these things, you put yourself in a little bit of a riskier situation.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
you also found this cool cafe.
right. Right.
So,
Yeah, and so there is a you say this word a lot, risk, right? We talk a lot about risk
yeah, we
when it
do.
comes to improv in general. And when we are endeavoring to be curious, there is risk involved.
Yeah.
When you ask yourself, is it possible to put a person on the moon? There's a lot of risk in getting that trajectory, getting to that space. And on stage, in the improv world, we practice this all the time. The curiosity, we practice it in ourselves, right?
Mm-hmm.
I wonder what happens when I move my body like this, or what happens when I go into the audience, or what happens when I crawl? What characters does that inspire? What
Mm-hmm.
reaction does it inspire? And from the audience or even from our teammates, right? And we get
Yeah.
to do that, and it immediately translates off stage.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it's
Yeah. And with that kind of curiosity, what we kind of get trained to do is to recognize that whatever the response is, to not like take it personally, to like take and to be like taking that risk. Like if we're curious, if we're truly curious and we're exploring and we're like, I wonder how the audience will react to this, and they're like, no, not a fan. uh we get
yeah,
trained to be like, okay, cool, let's move on to something different, uh because we are truly just curious in what that response is, not
yeah,
investing our whole selves in doing that thing. You know what I
yeah.
mean?
Yes. And it's the same thing, right? So I'm wondering if you're in the chat, if you're watching, I would love to know what you're curious about, what you're investigating about in your own life or in your partnerships or work. Let us know, because we are curious. There is there is um, not finite, but there is a thought of stop in
Mm,
curiosity, I think.
mhm,
Like there, instead of the journey, because you're talking about what you said was, oh, you said, you can try something out on stage, see if the audience is into it. If they're not into it, we don't stop.
Right.
right?
We're not like, oh no, I failed, and you just leave. You shrivel into a ball and you cry.
Mm-mm.
No,
No,
we don't do
you
that.
don't do that. You have to continue through, the pain of, not even pain, but the journey. You have to
Yeah.
continue through the journey so that you can see what is on the other side. How do you learn to get an audience back? How do you learn to interact with that audience so that they are on your side, right? What does the
Yeah.
audience need tonight and maybe not the next night, right? And
Mhm.
the thing is that I really was stuck in that space, like in a physical space
Yeah.
where I was so upset, right? I was just so upset. I could feel it. I just, oh, this would have worked out. Now it's ruined. Full stop. Right now it's rude. I'm never going to be able to fill in the blank, right? I'm never going to be
Mhm.
able to get to Emily. I'm going to have to tell Emily, you're on your own, do it by yourself.
Figure it out.
But that is not the journey that we're on, right? Or it's not the journey that I'm on. My
Mhm.
journey is, what is it like to put my work on my back? And that's going to mean a lot of things. It's going to mean rain, it's going to mean heat, it's going to mean internet failure, all of those things. But we learn, like you were saying, to try to be curious, to ask ourselves, is this going to work? To see the response and then to move through that response, whatever it is.
Yeah. And I think curiosity means too to being open to like those moments where like, yeah, maybe I will be stuck in the middle of nowhere for a
Mhm.
minute. And acknowledging that like, yeah, maybe I will hit a dead end. You know, if you think about when most people think about curiosity, they might think about like researching or like going down like internet rabbit holes, right? Or like you said, like researching your favorite plants. And there might be a time where you hit kind of like a dead end on your path. And if you're truly curious, then that's fine. That's fine to
Right.
be able to like, oh, okay, well, that's what happens when I go that way.
Hmm.
And now I've learned. Um, and so, yeah, I think the curiosity is in the joy of finding out, even if it's not an answer that you necessarily wanted.
I love that. I was thinking about that exact word, joy, right? And the end of what you said was, even if it's not necessarily what you wanted. And so the flip side of that joy is fear, I think,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
There is a fear that is going to hold you back a little bit. And sometimes that fear is like, it is part of the curiosity. It's like, ooh, is this going to work? Da, 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 da. But it can stifle you. It can be so overwhelming to be that fearful that you don't move through. And I
Yeah.
wonder, Emily, like as far as the work, your work, what is the consequence of not moving through? What is the consequence of being
Ooh.
so fearful that you don't move through something?
Well, I think there's a lot of um well if I'm gonna get like super technical behavioral obnoxiously so for a second just
Yes, please.
because of the way pop culture likes to handle the phrase negative reinforcement, which in technical phrase means that like we're more likely to do something when we avoid something that
Mhm.
is crappy. And so in this case, what I want to say is that like when we let fear stop us, there is some negative reinforcement there in that we avoid the fearful thing, right? We're able to be like, okay, that avoid or terminate the fearful thing, right? If we let's take the example of we are on stage and the audience doesn't like our reaction, and then you actually do go, oh, okay, well, goodbye then, and you terminate that
Mhm.
uncomfortable experience. And that for some people sometimes could be comforting, right? If you think about other things in life that we do where, I terminate a difficult conversation because I just don't want to have it, right? I'm just
Right.
like, nope, I'm done with that. And so for a lot of people, I think that can be very reinforcing, very comforting to just avoid the unknown, avoid the uncomfortable. But when we do that, we might miss out on new things or new experiences, right? I have a lot of social anxiety, especially around new people, right? Scares the jeepers out of me. But I know that if I kind of gave into that fear and I was like, well, I guess I'm not going to go on that trip. I'm just going to stay home. I'm not going to, meet people, then I miss out on the opportunity to make new friends or make a new connection or uh, any of those wonderful things
Mm-hmm.
that can happen. Um, and so I think rephrasing it and reframing it in that curiosity standpoint where we say, okay, it could go horribly wrong and I could make a fool of myself, but I'm just curious to see. I just want to know what's going to happen if I go. It could be great or it could be bad. It could be somewhere in between. And I
Mm-hmm.
genuinely am going with the purpose of just finding out.
Right.
Makes a huge difference.
Yeah, and there is a change that happens within us, right? That you I'm assuming that you do just because you have consistently or consistently said to yourself, I'm going to go to this thing, I'm going to go out, I'm going to meet these new people, doesn't necessarily mean that you are now like, and I did that 4 times and now I'm a completely different person.
Yeah, no, listen, I'm still anxious a lot. Listen, everyone. I had a 101 student ask me one time when like the anxiety was ever going to stop in terms of like performing. And I'm like, here's the secret. uh, there's always like a little bit of like, you're still who you are, right? The things that make you nervous might make you slightly less nervous in the future, but I'm still the kind of person that gets nervous that everyone's gonna judge me or do XYZ. But I have learned over time that the benefits for trying are so great and the joy of exploring and the curiosity of it is so great.
Right. And you, because you're doing that, you're teaching other people, you're bringing other people along for that ride, and you're changing the trajectory of who you are. And we talk about this basically every month, but we have been talking about having an idea of self, right?
Yeah.
And that it is okay to have a different idea of self.
Mhm.
And in order to have a different idea of self, in order to explore what a different you might be, you do have to have some curiosity, right? As to like, okay, what happens when I change my behavior, whatever that behavior is.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
absolutely.
hard though.
Yeah, yeah, it's tough and it's scary. And there are some things that like, I'm not saying we should all go out and try totally different things. I'm not gonna go out and try a crop top or like uh try like singing Christina Aguilera in public on the subway, but like uh little things. Or
Right.
things that might like physically hurt me, right? We've talked about my joint stuff before. I'm not going to go and try to do like what's the lifting where you lift the whole thing. I'm not.
Pull-ups.
No, what's the thing with the huge barbells where you do like the whole thing, like the straight
Oh,
up like
those
uplifting.
those
Yep,
things.
yep.
Somebody put it in the comment.
My arms will fall out of sockets. So like there's a I'm not going to drastically change my behavior in a way that I think will have significantly unpleasant consequences. But there's certainly room to like change some things.
Right, right. And those things, like you said, the behavior has to be that you're changing or exploring has to be in line with who it is you're trying to be, right? Like we're not
Right.
deadlifting. Is that what that is? We're not
Yes,
like
that's what it is. That's what I was thinking about.
deadlifting just because we want to try. Like, I wonder what that is. But if it's something like for whatever reason, Emily Arnold's like, listen, I really do want to try being a weightlifter. Then
Mhm.
okay, these are the things that we'll have to do. Yeah, it is so, we should in the next like couple minutes that we have, we should talk about a little bit of how we go about not exploring but generating curiosity without, not without fear, but practicing it so that it doesn't feel so, not challenging, but scary. Today felt scary for me,
Yeah.
and honestly more frustrating than
Yeah.
I was expecting it to be. This, the scary part, the fear of like, I'm far away from home, and uh, I can't get back to my comfort zone very quickly, was fine, but the frustration was actually um, surprising to
Mm-hmm.
me. And I wonder, let's chat about that. Like what is that?
I think there's on a smaller scale a relation to this story about me and deadlifting versus like doing a smaller change, right? I think when you're being curious about something, I think smaller steps tend to be less terrifying, right? Like if you have been like, I'm going to be out of the house all day, but I'm going to be essentially within walking distance. That's a different story
Mm,
than uh, or like if we're setting up like in a curiosity kind of way, kind of like what can I do within walking distance of my own house?
yeah.
What can I do within this thing that might be the next day might be slightly farther away until like we
Mhm.
get a little bit more used to those things. Um, in my house, my story time, uh, we have I don't know if I've talked about this on my cats on this show before, but I have two cats who are one who is wild. I don't know where she came from, but she's like missing a tooth and has a scar on her hip and is kind of like a train wreck little cat. And she, when we got her a couple of years ago, would just like charge like almost like ferally at my other cat. And so we had been separating them in different bedrooms and they were taking different shifts within the house for literally 2 years. And we finally, within the past couple months, have opened all the interior doors and they are tolerating each other a little bit. But this also means that I'm moving my older, scareder cat's food bowl from the comfort of like our primary bathroom down towards the kitchen where the other cat eats. And so I'm saying this because what we've been doing is moving her food bowl just a little bit at a time. It started on the outside of our bedroom and then the bottom of the floor or the bottom of the stairs. And now it is like just around the corner from the stairs. Like you just had to round the corner into the dining room. And because we're curious to see if she can eat downstairs, but we didn't want to jump straight to the kitchen. So we are taking these small steps and seeing how she's doing in these small, small steps, recognizing that if at any point she's like, nope, I'm not eating, I am too scared, that we can always backtrack. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, no, that relates so quickly. So like right on target, because man, it's so interesting when we think about being brave, like bravery and curiosity, and the idea of like, I wonder if this thing will work. Sometimes we can overshoot. I think, maybe today was one of those days we can overshoot, like whether it's out of nervousness or whether it's out of like, I can, just overzealous,
It's fine. I can do
like
it.
I can
Yeah.
do it. And
Uh-huh.
we overshoot. And you were talking in one of our shows about, oh, I wish I could remember the theme, but like wearing the helmet and wearing like
Yeah.
elbow pads and knee
Yeah.
pads and skating, and what those things represent when we are safe, when we are doing things safely. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I've seen, oh man, I've seen people, greener improvisers, newer improvisers, you know, charge stage. I know I did it when I was new, but they charge stage with such excitement, so much like power and force, and they're loud and they're like out there and moving and all of it. And that is great. It's great. Don't take that away from yourself.
Yeah, we need energy.
We need the energy. We need it. Also, it can, with all of that energy, if whatever it is that you're doing on stage doesn't pan out, or if it feels like you're not getting the immediate reaction that you want, sometimes it's because we're doing too much. We're doing too much, and it can
Mhm.
feel like almost like a failure. And I'm so glad
Mhm.
we're having this therapy session for myself, because I think some of that frustration was like, I did it. I looked at the weather. I got a backpack that fits. All my stuff is here. I asked that guy, when it was going to be ready. I checked. I did all the stuff, and I'm still in a position where um, the outcome isn't necessarily what I want. And I could feel myself being. I think that's getting back to that frustration, being like, I guess I'll never do this again. I
Yep.
but you're right. Like moving the cat bowl, one little step
A
at a
little bit at
time,
a time.
isn't a sign of fear. It's like we want to move through the journey. We want to be curious. We want to move through the journey. That curiosity can take a little bit of time until we get to the space where your cat is eating where you want them to be eating, or I
Yes.
am have the
Yeah.
tent on the top of my have a tent on the top of my car, and I'm like watching the sunset, and like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's a true nomad life. Yes.
Right?
Uh-huh. Hmm. Yeah, and we when we're curious, we like, I think it allows us to live a little bit more in the journey, right? And like to be able to not be so worried about the outcome, but to be more interested in what's currently happening, right? And taking even the letdowns as little presents. Like,
Mhm.
okay, now I know not to trust the bike guy fully. Maybe they
Right?
can.
It's true. It's
Uh
true.
huh.
You're that click right into improv, right? The being fully present, the curiosity isn't, I'm curious to see how this character influences the end of this scene,
Right. Yeah.
right? We're not doing that. It's, I'm curious in my own body. How do I influence, how do I influence Emily a little bit? Oh, that's how they responded. Now here's how I respond, and back and forth until 3 minutes is over, right? Or
Yeah.
whatever it is. But yeah, you're absolutely right. Like, man, I'm learning so much right this second. I really feel, I I really did have an idea of like, by the end of this day, I'm gonna fill in the blank. I'm gonna feel blankety blank. But really, what you're saying is no. I mean, yeah, sure. But in order to get there, you have to be present in every. You have to be curious in every moment, every step of the way.
Yep. Yeah. I think so. I think that, and I think that makes it more interesting and enjoyable too, to be able to like take things as they come. I mean, we know the joy of being on stage and being able to be like in the present moment and like learning about your characters at the same time, like discovering where you are, discovering what your relationship is. Like that is so fun. Let's do that off stage too, right? Let's explore what
Yes.
what is here and where are we and what are we doing, and um this new area of town that's far away, what lessons am I learning today?
Right.
This new thing that I'm experiencing, what lessons am I learning today? And how
Right.
is this going? I think that can make all of our days a little bit more fun and interesting.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Uh, you said we only have like 30 seconds left. It says, I can't, I can't remember. Oh, Oh, friends and family. Our whole thing is curiosity this month, and next week, this is what I want to talk about. We'll delve deeper a little bit into curiosity and how really it pertains to the community. How being this way, exactly what we're talking about, in little increments and being present every moment, right? Instead of having a giant picture and trying to bite it all off at once, how the curiosity really can connect us to our community. Yeah, we'll talk about that. We'll talk about that next week.
That sounds perfect.
Until then, I think we'll probably enjoy seeing you on and
off the stage. Goodbye.
Bye.